So this video is going to take you through how you would go about applying your knowledge of parliamentary lawmaking to a scenario question. So for AS law, Eduqas, this is going to be worth 18 marks. For A-level law, you could get exactly the same question. It's just going to be worth 15 marks and you'll have a few minutes less. So one of Eduqas's favourite things to do that we've seen in previous exams is they like to use examples of real things that are going on in the news and asking you to look at sort of the perspective on them. And sometimes it can be a bit of a red herring because you might end up knowing quite a lot about the thing that you know that the scenario is based on, but the question may not be directly relevant to that. So be really, really careful. So I've written this question because we've never had parliamentary lawmaking application question yet. Just because we haven't doesn't mean that it won't come up, people. And I've included that real life element to the scenario just to make sure that you don't get caught out by it. So Jess is a member of the opposition who has been elected as a member of Parliament for Birmingham Yardley. Advise Jess on the process which needs to take place for a bill to become a law. So those of you politically in the know will know that Jess is the MP for Birmingham Yardley, Jess Phillips, Labour MP. So don't get bogged down in telling me everything you ever know about Jess Phillips, please. So this is a tricky question in that it is deceptive. It looks like you're just going to tell them about parliamentary lawmaking, but that's not a 15 or 18 marker. That's a 5 or a 6 marker. So how do you access those higher level application marks? Well, you've got to make it relevant to the person that you're talking to. And the key things are, she is a member of the opposition. She's not in government. And she's an MP. She's not a lord. So we're going to tell her that she's going to be heavily involved in the lawmaking process and she needs to understand how it operates. We're going to start by saying that it's going to start with a green paper. And that's going to be issued probably by the minister who is in charge of that matter, and that it's a consultative document. So there's going to be people who are going to be asked for their opinions. And you might want to include examples of where this is relevant. Today, on the 2nd of July, I filled in a consultative document, which will be the basis of a green paper regarding A-level exams and GCSE exams for next year. I'm an interested party as a teacher. So that's where a green paper is going to come in. And from that, so interested parties are invited to send in comments. Following that, the government will publish the white paper. So based on the things that I said and lots of other people have said about next year's A-level and GCSE exams, a white paper will be published, and then that will go with some changes, is likely to go ahead and become law. So once the proposals in the green paper and white paper have undergone consultation, it will be drafted into a bill, but there are several types of bill that Jess needs to be aware of. So most common are public bills set out by the parliamentary party in power, so not her then. Bills based on these tend to be passed through Parliament easily. It's recognised that the party who's voted into power because of these policies. Proposals for bills for the coming year are usually included in the Queen's speech each November. An example of this was the Constitutional Reform Act 2005, which created the new Supreme Court and did a lot of other things as well. Another type of bill is a private member's bill. Now, these are put forward by individual backbenchers, Jess being a backbencher, whose names have been selected by a ballot, and there's only 20 per year. Time for these debates is limited, and so very few become law unless they have government support. Important acts passed in this way include the Abortion Act 1967 and the Computer Misuse Act 1990. So the age of those acts of parliament should really tell you how unlikely a private member's bill is to become law. So finally, there are private bills. These are the least common and only affect a particular area or group in the community, so not the general public. So public bills affect the whole of the country, whereas private bills only affect a section of the community. So, for example, private bills relating to the new high-speed railway line, High Speed 2, are relevant to us in Birmingham, as is there's been some law surrounding the Commonwealth Games as well. So those are private bills which would affect us and would affect Jess. So the bill, once it's been drafted to the approval of the minister or whoever started it, is then sent through to one of the houses. Now, this is usually the House of Commons. This is where the first reading of the bill will be introduced to the Commons, and it merely notifies the House of the bill and its subject matter. There is no debate. So at this stage, Jess would just hear the name of the bill read out. Now, what use is that, do you think? Well, she's going to be told there will be a bill debated on the whatever date in the future, and it is to do with this particular area. Now, if it's something that she is really, really passionate about, then she'll make sure that she's there for the debate. It might be a bill that she's never heard of and she doesn't know anything about, and so she'll be able to go away and do some research to find out if it's something that she can contribute to. So moving along, the second reading is the main event. This is the big one, people, where a bill lives or dies. The bill will be explained by the minister, followed by the political debate, where the principles of the bill are debated, and it will be followed by a vote. So Jess can take part in this debate. She can ask questions to the minister, and then she's able to vote on it. After this, the bill is then sent to the committee stage, which is a group of between 16 and 50 MPs, and it's proportionate to the parties in the House. So depending on how many seats you got in Parliament, depends on how many MPs you get on the committee. So the committee is going to be made up of people who know about the subject area and will examine the bill in really minute detail. So if Jess is suitably interested and qualified, she may be able to be on the committee. Once you've had the committee stage, that will be followed by the report stage, where the committee reports back on their amendments, and there is a vote, but purely on the changes. It's not on the spirit of the bill at this stage. So Jess can vote on these amendments. And then we move on to the third reading. So many students forget either the report stage or the third reading. Yes, and I understand you forget them because they usually take place at the same time, but they are two different things. So the third reading is the final debate on the bill in its whole, in its amended form. It's usually a formality, and there can't be any changes to the substance of the bill. So even though this is a formality, Jess and the other MPs would still have a vote at this stage. So then we move over to what a lot of people describe as the other house, because you use the green winged dragons fly slowly clockwise round the old ruin mnemonic. But what we're talking about here is usually the House of Lords, assuming that the bill has started in the Commons. So just a little introduction to the Lords. You don't need to know loads. It's approximately 700 members. They're unelected and unpaid, but they do get an allowance for the days that they attend. And their role is to scrutinise and amend proposed legislation. The Lords goes through exactly the same stages of readings and committees. The only difference is that they don't split off into little committees. The whole House sits as a committee. Now, under the Parliament Acts 1911 and 1949, the Lords are only able to delay a bill for up to a year, and they are there to provide a check on the Commons because they're not elected, so they don't have the same level of power. If the House of Lords wish to amend a bill, it must be referred back to the Commons, and Jess, as our MP, could take part in approving the changes that the Lords have made, and this is known as ping-pong procedure. And the final stage that, again, students forget because I think you're tired by this point, is approval by the Monarch. Now, we know that this is a formality, and Her Majesty does not sit and read every single bill, and actually she is now only given the title of the bill. And this is it's often not done by the Queen personally. Once a bill reaches the royal assent stage, it should reflect the general will of the people, and no monarch has refused to give royal assent since 1707 with the Scottish Militia Act. So royal assent is very much a formality and isn't really going to change very much, and you're not going to expect Her Majesty not to approve it. So if there is no other date set, the bill will become an act of Parliament at midnight on the night that it gets royal assent. Otherwise, it will come into force on the date that's given in the particular act. So I'm quite sure that you know the law relating to how a law is made, and you know the process, but would you have gone through and advised your client in quite that level of detail? Would you have referenced her role at each key stage? If not, have a think about it, because if you look at the question, it asks you to advise. And if you are merely explaining, you're not answering the question, and it will be absolutely catastrophic for your mark. So make sure you have a look back and do that properly for me.